Very excited to be joining you guys tonight with a special guest on the show. Josh Sharp will make his triumphant return to Coast2Coast Pinball. It's going to be the entirety of this extended episode 109. Let's go. Welcome to Coast2Coast Pinball. My name is Nate Shivers, podcast commentary man and a quarters. Granted, we've got that. Very glad to have Josh Sharp coming back on the show tonight. I had more feedback and more downloads, quite frankly, of the show than any other episode at the point when Josh came on the show 10 months ago, back in January, for a full-length interview. And I thought that it was a great time with some things happening with the IFPA, which Josh, of course, plays an integral part of, and with Expo right around the corner, and the great run Josh put up at Papa this year. I thought there's lots of stuff to talk about. So coming to you not live from both San Diego and Chicago, we will feature my conversation this evening with the one, the only Josh Sharp. I hope you enjoy, and away we go. I would like to welcome back to Coast2Coast Pinball Josh Sharp. How are you doing tonight?
I am. I'm living the pinball collector's nightmare. My basement is now at capacity for games.
Uh-oh.
So I'm looking around and trying to figure out the first one to go if I get another game, which is just the worst place to be in.
What was the last game to get in there and fill it all up?
I've had a lucky run of a couple of local Craigslist deals over the last month. After a couple of years of really I go through phases of not looking, and then I start looking again. So 2 EMs will be coming down, and then we'll have to start thinning the herd a little bit.
Oh boy!
Or buying a bigger house. I don't know what normal collectors do. Maybe it's buy a bigger house.
They buy bigger houses. Yeah, that's exactly what they do. Well, I gotta say thanks for coming on. You're the first ever repeat guest.
Hey, all right.
So you've got that going for you. You were on the show January 8th of this year, so that was 10 months ago.
That was 1 kid ago.
Oh my gosh, that was 1 kid ago. Now, I went back and listened to that episode because I wanted to see what we talked about, because I frankly don't remember. And one thing I noticed is the interview sounded a little funny to me. I thought I sounded sort of down, and I'm like, why did I sound down that night? And I told you this at Papa, but I'll let everyone else on the show now know this. I screwed up that night and somehow didn't record my side of the audio when we did the interview. So I had your side, but I literally had to go back in and fake my side of the interview against your side, which took forever.
Now you'll have to see if the number of downloads on that old show now go up so people can analyze your statements.
Well, I think once you know, you can tell, because there's just moments where I'm like, I drop one word in there just so whatever you were saying made sense. It's so bad. It's the only real bad recording, but I wasn't going to call you back and be like, hey, Josh.
Let's do it again.
So we just had that great hour and 10 minutes on let's just rehash it all. I just could not do that. So we've got this one. I have more caffeine in me than apparently when I was re-recording my own side last time, and this will be good. So there's a lot going on. However, I noticed one thing we talked about is how your rankings on the IFPA World Pinball Rankings had slipped, and we sort of blamed that on children. You've added a kid, but you've gained 5 spots. You're up to number 17 right now on the rankings.
So there's a rumor. And I look at Jim Belcito for this, but he won Pinburg this year, and he's actually been on a little tear since he had his second child. So I've been sort of hoping to follow in his footsteps of, you sort of tank at 1 kid, and then you sort of find your groove at the second kid.
That's interesting. That maybe so. Now Zach, however, has dropped. He was number 1 when we talked earlier this year. Now he's number 3.
We call that the girlfriend effect. Amazing what that does.
That's funny. That's really good. Well, very cool. So what prompted me to think, oh my gosh, Josh needs to come on the show before we get to Expo, because there's tons to talk about, was the thread on Pinside that was based off of a post on the IFPApinball.com website of changes coming to the IFPA point system and formula next year, the Whopper points, as people refer to it, the World Pinball Player Rankings.
Yes.
That sort of sparked a lot of conversation amongst the people running tournaments, playing in tournaments, interested in talking about tournaments. and I thought great time to maybe talk about it here and see why the changes, what experiences from the past years have gotten you guys to this point where you thought that stuff needed to be tweaked a little bit to maybe further, the idea of the Whopper points and how that all plays out. So maybe you want to give the brief overview of how it works to those of us dumb like me who don't fully understand it. We can start there.
The system has always been about motivating players and giving them a reason to go out and play anywhere they can. And when we started 8 years ago, we've been having this sort of tug of war between trying to create an accurate ranking system while trying to motivate organizers to run events. So the promotional tool of what Whopper's all about and the accuracy of rankings tool, they sort of pull in opposite directions. So over the years, a lot of what we've done is focus on at least with this, this is the 5th iteration over 8 years that we've really made a big change to what's going on. And this is by far the biggest change in favor of accuracy. And whether that hinders people to continue to promote running events, we'll have to wait and see. I know that there's definitely going to be a lower value of a lot of events. I know over the years, we had a guaranteed minimum base, so no matter what, if you ran a tournament at Nickel City or whatever's by you would get 25 points for that event no matter what. And, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that it's really not fair that all of these events are worth, 25 points when there's 3 people that show up to this one, or there's 178 people that show up to this one, or there's 500 people that show up to this one. And the various formats that happen. And we've been trying to figure out a way to sort of move into that direction. And the catalyst was actually at Papa, not this year, but Papa the year before. There was a Jersey Jack launch party in Wizard of Oz that Joe Newhart from Pinball Star Amusements ran.
Yeah.
And based on the current system the way it was, the Whopper points awarded for that launch party was actually going to award more points than the Papa A winner. Just looking at it as like, yep, put in the numbers, this is what it is. And,
wow.
10 out of 10 dentists would tell you that that's really stupid.
And for those that don't fully understand this, a tournament gets a certain amount of points to then divvy up to all the participants. Is that right?
Yeah, it is right.
Okay. Okay, so that is a problem if you had a launch party for a game that's much more casual, awarding more points than the, quote, World Championship of Pinball.
Right, it was pretty much everybody get in line, play your game once over a couple of hours, and then we'll see you later, versus, you were at Papa this year, the weekend grind that is Papa.
Yeah. So what's the basic move here to make this change to even that out, to make it more awarding of the higher level tournaments?
Well, what we ended up doing last year, and it's sort of been our way over the years, is we just stick Band-Aids on situations that don't make sense. So we put in the points from the launch party, and I think it was Carl D'Angelo won, and I think Zach got second, and it was like, congratulations, Carl, here's 74 points for, you playing one game of Wizard of Oz. And we just artificially decided to start dividing all launch parties by 33%. And, got a bunch of people that were not happy about us arbitrarily, just cutting people's points after the fact. But that's really the only thing we can do, because we had sort of this formula that just worked the way it worked. And we're now, rather than needing to come up with Band-Aid after Band-Aid after Band-Aid, and over the years there's a lot of Band-Aids, the flexibility of this new system is that every tournament can now be graded just based on the attributes of that tournament. How many players play, what the format is. We no longer have to worry about, one of the other arbitrary rules we had was if you wanted to run an event in Nickel City, you'd get your 25 points. If you were like, hey, Josh, that was a really fun time, I'd love to do it again, I would have to respond to you and say, you can do it again, but you're going to take your 25 points and you're going to divide them by 2 for each time you run the event. And you're going to be like, dude, that sucks. I just gave out, 25 points to this winner. And if I want to do this again, you're now going to take points away from him. And I'm going to say, yes, that's our rule. Is you get 25 points for the year. So there was a lot of stuff that didn't make sense, and in those kind of situations, we end up motivating people to not run events. So if I tell you I'm going to split your points if you run another event there, and you choose to not run an event, then we're not even helping our promotional tool of what Whopper's all about.
And so, the reason that was there, though, is you're trying to spread the events out and get other venues tournaments, right?
Yeah, well, it was that, and I didn't want someone to be able to run an event for 25 points every single day of the year.
Gotcha.
So now they can. But now, based on the way the new formula works, it has to be a quality event with many people showing up all the time for it to be worthwhile.
Gotcha. So, do you struggle sometimes? And I see the struggle in the thread on Pinside. What's the goal here? Are we trying to? And I think I know the answer to this, but I'll lead the witness. Is the goal to give them the most fair ranking system and point system available, or is the goal to promote tournament pinball and the growth of tournament pinball?
So it's still both. We're trying to do the jack of all trades thing and do neither particularly well still, but try to do both better. And the thing that helps us is with the state championship series being open-ended, and by that I mean you get to count all the events that you play within a state. Your world ranking is based off of a limited number of events, so you have this ability to, host an event every single night at Nickel City and give out, 8 points every single night. It's not going to have that big of an impact on a player's world ranking, but for state, you're allowed to just rack up points in California to really have an impact on the state standings. And I liked the way that promoted people to run more events, even if they aren't necessarily big scoring events, because they do add up in aggregate.
Gotcha. Now, how has the state championships and that sort of idea, because I know we talked about it nearly a year ago, as it was growing, have you seen growth this year in 2014?
Definitely. I haven't done our little third quarter recap yet, but I think we had already had more people participate across all the states after June than all of last year.
Wow.
And we were able to, seeing obviously the half of our 27,000 player base is not from the U.S. We've expanded to include Europe with the ECS, and even more recently, Australia, the UK, and New Zealand have started championship series of their own.
How does that tie in? I know I was watching your website, and there's the 2014 European Championship Series. I think it's like a 17-event series.
It is.
What was the impetus there? How did that kind of grow? Where has it been successful? We have a lot of European listeners to the show.
I know that the European guys saw what we did with the SES, and we have a message board with all of the country directors. I think there's over 30 IFPA country directors who have really helped, not only shape the Whopper system, because the difference, and I mean, you see it in the Pinside post with all the tournaments based on, pump and dump formats and money this and money that. There's really the way the U.S. runs tournaments, and then there's the way the rest of the world runs tournaments. And for me to be able to try to make a world pinball player ranking system, it needs to be something that works for everyone. So, a lot of the ideas that we end up pushing through, it's I get a lot of pushback of, well, man, that's just favoring Europe. And it's what's a ranking system if Europe doesn't care about it? So I think a lot of the European country directors saw what we did with the SCS, and when I reached out to them asking if they wanted to do something similar, everyone was excited to jump on board, and each country director was able to pick one event in their country that would sort of be represented in the ECS. And it's been a traveling circus for this year that I think there's 5 events to go. Wow,
that's awesome. Would you say you have a preferred, or do you find one format of pinball tournament as, quote, the best?
I don't. I think they all provide unique challenges, and Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I know that Brian Shepard, who is sort of the backbone of he's the wizard behind the curtain for everything that goes on the IFPA site and everything else. I mean, we've been arguing over what now we will be releasing with, the new Whopper system next year. He's been pushing for these changes for probably 3 years. And my argument has always been it's impossible to grade formats in terms of their difficulty because they just present, it's not about more or less difficult, it's about different kinds of challenges. So whether, I have to do a popper run of 5 games, or I get to play, match play, which is just live play, over and over again. Is something harder or easier, or is it just different and with unique challenges? And for me, I think, and hopefully we'll see what happens. I know that people are looking for the easiest ways for their tournaments to grade out to high percentages, and my hope is that we don't push the direction of one format being the easiest way for tournaments to grade out. And I don't know what that is yet, but I'm assuming that people are trying to work that angle over right now. But I hope that we've tried to keep a balanced way for all of these different formats to live on, because I enjoy all of them.
The term pump and dump has been getting a lot of play, and a lot of people have kind of taken a side on that. What are your thoughts on the open-ended qualifying, where I can literally spend my $300 if I so choose trying to qualify for the finals?
I think it's a really good format for people to, and it's easy to be like, I'm going to invest $300, but for a lot of people that just want to get a taste of what competitive pinball is all about, it's really only an investment of $3 if you wanted to play, one game. And as long as, it's where the arguments on Pinside sort of go, which is the self-control over having a budget in mind when you go and play. And for me, I still have a budget when I go for pump and dumps. I'll bring $100 and it's like, all right, you better do it in $100 or you're a loser and stop paying, because you don't want to get caught up in, I spent $860 and I finished 23rd. I think it's more flexible and more inviting for new people to give it a try. And I think that's the most important thing in growing the sport. I mean, I don't know how many, when we talked in January, how many ranked players we had. I'm sure it was 21,000 or 22,000. Since then, we've had 5,000 or 6,000 more, and the continued growth we have, that's 6,000 new players that hadn't previously played. And for us to get to 30,000, we need to find 3,000 more players that hadn't previously played. And I think the pump and dump format actually does a decent job, and a lot of shows have gotten smart, and I think we're going to see it more now that player count actually has an impact on the value of a tournament. Is a lot of shows give out like free tickets to try and qualify.
Yep.
So I know they did that in Louisville a couple of years ago, because I got the results and it was like 219 players played or something, and I was just like, oh my god, what happened? And it was like, oh, everyone got a free ticket. I'm like, that is brilliant. And some of those people decided, hey, this is fun, and they put in $10 or whatever.
Yeah, I think that is great. And one of the points that I thought made a lot of sense, too, is we're starting to see this, and maybe I shouldn't say we're starting to see, I'm starting to see as I've gotten out on the road and gone to more of these tournaments, there's a traveling group of players, for sure, that are going to as many shows as they can physically and financially get to. The pump and dump format, the open-ended qualifying, really is advantageous to those players who are traveling hundreds, thousand miles maybe, to get, maybe they're coming from the East Coast to It Never Drains. If they had a really limited qualifying, like a three ticket and you're out type of system, it could be a really short weekend and a short trip if they came mainly for a tournament.
Yeah, and I guess, a better person to ask would be someone like yourself, you've had a little bit more experience now on, showing up to a Nickel City monthly where you're thrown in a bracket versus going to in-disc versus playing at Papa, and how intimidating, maybe a Papa run is for a more, I won't call you a more casual player, but
yeah, that's
someone...
that's actually way too nice of a way to describe my playing.
What's your feeling on if you were able to go to one event and sort of you had $100 on you that you'd be willing to spend?
And that is, honestly, that's about my budget right now on these. And it's funny because when I went to in-disc, that was intimidating because that was not a pinball expo or a show. That was a room with some games set up for a tournament and a bunch of players staring at each other and looking at the standings. And that was intimidating, and it was still really fun, though. But I could see, if it hadn't been open-ended qualifying, that could have been a nightmare. That could have been 2.5-hour drive just completely wasted, whereas I really had no chance of qualifying, having it be my first real big tournament, but I still really enjoyed dropping $100 up there and trying to qualify and trying to get those scores. And I sort of, I guess, side on the better players over time are going to win anyway. So if it is, and we saw that at Papa. We saw really good players put up good tickets, even in that format. When they had to go back and put up another good ticket, those better players generally will do so. So yeah, I think at the expos and the shows, I think it's really important, and I think also the pinball tournaments. If you want to get, and maybe it's not the top 10 or top 20 we're talking about here, but those guys that are ranked bottom half of the top 100, I just can't see asking them to travel a day's travel to then come up and only have 3 shots at something. It just doesn't seem, unless there was a giant money added prize pool or something, which we don't have yet.
We talk a lot with tournament organizers, and the response I always, and they're always asking me, like, what kind of format should we do? What's best? Blah, blah. And my response to them is always, who are you trying to cater to? What are you trying to get out of your tournament? And for some of them, they just want there to be some kind of tournament that is another form of entertainment at a show versus I want the top 50 players in the world to show up. And those are 2 completely different motivations for how you want to set up your tournament. And then that would lead me to lead them down 2 different paths completely. And I know that, the limited stuff I think is great if you're just looking to have something where you have a show where there's a million other things to do, and everyone, you pay your entrance gate package, and here's your 10 tickets for the tournament, and when you're done with that, we have seminars and food and rides and games and whatever, versus, showing up to Indisc where it's tournament only, or Papa where it's tournament only, even with other games to play. And you really need something open-ended because that is the entertainment.
Definitely. What are your thoughts on the games actually being picked and chosen for the tournaments, and then maybe even go all the way back to like EM versus early solid state versus modern games, and then it was really cool to see Wizard of Oz popping up in the A division in Papa. What are your thoughts on the actual games being played, because they're all so different?
I know that Mr. Steinman over at Papa has done a great job of mixing up some of the titles to not include sort of the ones that we had always been seeing over the years. There was a run, well before you were into this little hobby, where it felt like it was the same, out of the 8 to 10 games, you could probably guess, 3 to 5 that were just there every year. And I know there's this fear of avoiding games with huge exploits. And, I know Mark looks at something where if the exploit is available, but it takes some sort of skill to pull it off, that's something he wants to see people try and do. And I think between that and sort of being able to alter a game to make it as fair as possible for tournament play, I think that the time has been really good to take some risks on that and throw some old games into there and see what happens. I know that it brought me back to the old days at Expo where, here in Chicago, the tournament game every year would be the one that was just on test for the last week, and you would be learning how to play while you're standing in the qualifying line. And I remember showing up to Papa this year and finding Mark, and it was like, hey, dude, so I haven't played Surf and Safari in 20 years. Take me through it. It was a new game to me. I had no idea what to do because, unfortunately I missed, I think it was in Indisc or in one of the West Coast tournaments, and I didn't get out there. But I think the ability to bring in sort of off-the-wall titles keeps it fresh and keeps it exciting for the players and for the organizers. I
think it was incredible to watch, you guys, by saying you guys, the top players at Papa, kind of learn and figure out the strategy to a game like Alien Star, which I'd never even played, on the fly, literally just watching it play out in front of us. And those who really, could get those shots learned quickly succeeded.
Yeah, it's really it gets a different section of your brain, I guess, thinking rather than when you've played a game a million times and you know exactly what you need to do. It's like you sort of walk up there and you're just numb, and it's like, I don't know, it's like going to work and just performing a task and getting it done versus figuring out something along the way. And I think, we'll see that at Expo with The Walking Dead in the lineup. And it's like, there'll be people in line, and if I see someone playing, and it's like, dude, what are you doing on this thing? And everyone sort of, and that's what's so great about the community is everyone will be helping each other sort of get through it over the weekend. Unless you really find something that's really unique and nice that you don't want to share.
Sure, that's funny. What are your thoughts? Because one thing I noticed in being at my first Papa, and we'll get into Papa a little bit because you had just a fantastic run.
Yeah, but, I can't wait.
Yeah. As far as the tournament goes, one thing that I guess I knew and was very aware of, but watching it happen still sort of struck me as slightly interesting, I guess is the best word I could use here, is the top qualifiers and who gets to pick what machines are getting played. Do you think there should be more randomness to the games that end up being the final games, or do you like people getting to call their shot if they earn that?
I love giving players that have qualified high we call it driving the bus.
Yes.
And if you've earned the right to drive the bus, you've earned the right to drive the bus. And I think tournament organizers need to give incentive for players to qualify high because, at least here in the U.S., where cash is king, you need to give people a reason to keep qualifying even if they're in the top 16. If there was no choice for game available, you wouldn't see someone like Keith Elwin playing while he's sitting in sixth, trying to get a top 4 spot.
He wouldn't spend the money, time, and whatnot.
I don't know if any of us would. I mean, the rate of return on moving up, trying to move up for what? To play, second instead of third or whatever. But when you get a chance to actually drive the bus, it's amazing what that can do for you. And I know that I think I was the 3rd seed, and we have our little warm-ups, and we can get more into it later, but I knew there were already games I wouldn't have to play, at least in the first couple of rounds, because I was driving my own bus, and there's something really great about that.
That's interesting. And it was very interesting watching some people call their shot and then not doing well on that game.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's not. There's no guarantee, obviously.
Never.
Well, that's interesting. What are you looking at now? Is the Whopper points changes are all taking effect on January 1st, correct?
Yes.
What's going to be the thing that you're going to have your eye on the most in that first few weeks when you start seeing reports and results come back in? What are you looking at?
There's a couple of things just really for next year that I'm looking at, and one is we're requiring sort of more effort from our tournament organizers to help get events on the calendar and explained correctly, since now that the format actually does matter. And then we have our results module on the website where now that I have 2 kids, I no longer input every single result that happens. I've had 7 years of that, and then Brian Shepard had 2 months of that, and he said, "How have you done this for 7 years? I'm so done with this." But turning sort of those keys over to the organizers and requiring them to handle that responsibility, that's going to be turned up 10 notches with the new system because of how much detail we need in order to get the tournament evaluated properly. So that's the one big thing where I hope, by January, end of January, February, March. I mean, the problem is a lot of these guys that run a tournament once a year, there's some guys in July that are going to be July or August before I actually have to interact with them for their annual tournament. So, trying to get them through the process as easy as possible is definitely on my mind. And then, the second thing is with our previous sort of rules about only being able to hold one annual tournament a year at a given location, we were able to run some awesome charitable campaigns in 2014 by allowing an exception to that rule. And that opened the floodgates for these, groups of players to be able to organize additional full value tournaments. And that exception goes away because in the new system, they can just continue to run tournaments at their leisure. They don't need a charity exemption to do so. So I know we've been really pleased with raising over 60 grand for, and I say we, the players, it's really all falls on the players, have raised over $60,000 for various charities, whether it's Project Pinball or going back to Barry and Python, which is sort of I can remember sitting on my couch watching TV, and my dad was over, and I saw the same GoFundMe message as everyone else when the Barry news hit.
Yep.
And you can throw your $100 over to Barry and say good luck. And I remember just sitting there and just wondering if there was a way for us to use the Whopper system for good. And the charity exemption happened, and I think Barry might have been Project Pinball. I think eclipsed Barry for the most money raised, but it was close to 20 grand just for Barry, and it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I know how pleased he was. And we've been able to do that over and over again. And we have 3 more campaigns. We're taking this to the house until January 15th
changes,
comes. Yeah. So we have Pop Pinball Outreach Project that's happening in October, Flip Off Hunger in November, and then a Flippin' with the Greats in December. So we'll see if we can get that 60 to an 80 before all is said and done.
That's great.
But next year we want to try to continue to do these charitable campaigns, and I don't expect to be able to hit that number because I'm sure that many people were running it for Whopper reasons, and we'll just have to see what happens. Those are the 2 big things on my mind.
Gotcha. That's a great answer. That's good insight. Shifting gears a little bit, because I think it's something interesting. So I got to come meet you in person, watch the A Division do what they do at Papa this year.
Yeah.
And it was thrilling. I mean, it was great. And I played in the C Division, then the B Division, and had tons of thoughts on all of that, which is really a more Papa-specific thing. But watching you play specifically, I was taken aback at how animated and how funny you were when you played. Like, shaking other machines, swearing at the game. It was pretty great, and I think you became sort of, for those who didn't have direct friends playing in it, a lot of people around me were sort of rooting for you because you were that crazy Josh Sharp guy that's shaking the other game that he's not playing. So that was fun. What was your experience at Papa like this year? Because you almost did it.
Well, I think it was, I might have talked to you right after I put my qualifying run in.
Yes.
I was pretty much Papa irrelevant in A Division from Thursday, Friday, and most of Saturday. So, I mean, I was sort of, getting texts from the wife of, hey, early flight in the morning? And it's like, go away, shut up. And, to be able to put that run together, and everyone who knows me, I did qualify third. Everyone who knows me, though, knows that I hate playing at night. I'm a morning player, typically. So as the hour, as the morning moves to the afternoon and into the evening, it's like, I am so effed here. It's done, Zach. I'm so screwed. As, Zach's been sitting there fine since Thursday afternoon or whatever. And, put a run together, so sort of felt like I was playing with house money and had a good enough seed to finish in third and not only get the bye now that there was 24 players that were qualified, but knew that if at least the first round that I'd get to play, I'd get to play 3 games that I wanted to play, and from there, I mean, I've bombed out of Papa finals enough times that it really doesn't faze me anymore. So kind of just, let's go to work and do this. And knowing that I had a pretty good shot with, the games available and driving the bus, that we could see if we can make magic happen or die trying.
Well, it was fun to watch. Now, your qualifying games, what a bizarre trio of machines, if you really look at it. It was Star Trek, Mousing Around, and World Cup Soccer, I believe. It
was those 3 and 2, there were 2 others, right? Because it's a thing of 5.
It is a thing of 5. I guess those are your top 3 games is what I'm looking at.
They were... Yeah, Mousing Around, I really didn't know how to play before I got there too much. I dabbled in it and, of course, watched enough Papa footage and to sort of know what to do. But, I don't know. You sort of... I don't know if you felt that grind in C Division, but you sort of go in, or when you move to B, but you start playing games and you go in, and the first thing you do is you want to play all your favorite titles because you know how to, kick the crap out of them. Yep. And then you play them, and it totally sucks, and it plays nothing like your game, and it sucks. So you throw those games in the garbage, And you just have to really focus on, like, this game is I'm playing this game okay. I hate this game or whatever, or it's not fun or whatever it is, but just focus on being as comfortable as you can.
Yeah, you had
and
Twilight Zone and High Speed were your other two.
Yeah, so Twilight Zone, normally, it's been in Papa a few times, and I'll play it once, and it's like, ugh, because I have one at home, and I grew up with one in my bedroom since, it came out, and it always doesn't play like the one at home. And for some reason, I really felt great on that one, in the A-Bank this year. So it was, it might have been in every run I did, except for the runs that maybe I bombed out on. But it might have been one of my best qualifying runs ever there. Oh, no, that's not true. I was the 1 seed a while ago. Back when I was a youngin'.
Back when you're, yeah. So in the finals, when we got to the finals, it was you, your brother Zach, Josh Henderson, and then the eventual champion, Kaylee George.
That guy, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the 3 games you guys played on, I felt were you were driving, right? You were choosing.
I was driving, man. This was cash money in the bank. I was pumped.
Adam's Family, Aliens. Did you know Alien Star? Was that a game you were very?
I did. It's actually Derek Fugati, who is an A player, has had one for years, and I know it's shown up in the Expo Classics division a couple times.
Yep.
So I dig it. I dig the Alien Star.
And then Metallica, which you own, I believe.
I do, and was feeling good on it, and I knew that. So there's a strategy to Papa Finals. Clearly, as I've never won, I'm going to share with you the way to win Papa Finals.
Yes, please tell.
Like, when it's a different animal when you're playing 3 games and you're trying to finish in the top 2 to advance. And when you get to the finals, you're playing to win. And Metallica, especially with the new code and the crank it up modes, there's such an open-ended opportunity for dropping a humongous score out of nowhere, even on that 3rd ball. I had no doubt that if Pop was going to come down to me, winning or losing, I wanted the opportunity to, no matter how crappy my first 2 balls were, I could blow up Metallica on ball 3 by really working a crank it up mode and utilizing my double play field at the right time. And if I could do that, I felt pretty confident I would win.
Now, did you just not get to that? Is that what happened there?
That's I think that is the hole I left lit after, I think, missing the scoop 2 or 3 times on my last ball.
Interesting. Did that game at Papa play like yours at home?
It felt good. It felt good.
It seems like that was what other players were telling me was the variation from like an Addams Family, even the Addams Family out on the floor.
That's disaster. Yeah, it's like you play the games on the floor to learn the rules, but don't go play the game on the floor and then step up and play the same title in the bank. You're just asking for disaster.
Definitely learned that. That is good. I'm writing that on my arm right now, so I can hopefully remember that. Well, you finished second, so congratulations on the runner-up. I think there's a rule in there somewhere if the champion, Kaylee George, cannot, keep up his duties as champion, you will be the champion at that point. Hey,
that's all right. It's my second. I'm like, I don't know how I'm still alive right now.
Now, what are your thoughts on the rearrangement of the schedule now? Because Papa 18 is coming around very quickly.
I'm glad with my daughter that ended up being born on April 6th. And the reason why I missed Pittsburgh this year, I know that Papa is now earlier in March than Pinburgh used to be. So for me, it works out. I haven't missed a trip to Pittsburgh besides that in forever. So it doesn't matter to me which one's when. I'll be at both for as long as I possibly can.
Very, very cool. Let's talk about Expo that's coming up. Pinball Expo is less than 2 weeks away now, or 2 weeks away, I guess. It
is
from right now.
Yeah, I guess a week and a half if you go to the Bumper Blast on Wednesday.
There's all sorts of stuff. I've never been to an Expo. I missed it last year. Could not make it. This will be the first Expo for me. You've been to how many now?
This will be my 26th.
So you've been going since you were just
9 since we moved out here when my dad got a job at Williams. So since 88.
88, wow. What would you say has been the change in Expo from your point of view? Because you saw it from the glory days through the down days to now this resurging era. What's Expo been like for you?
I mean, back in the day, it was the industry trade show. I mean, it was amazing to have. I mean, it's sort of like when you go to one of your guitar trade shows. It's like there's Gibson and there's Taylor, and you walk in and it's like there's the Sega booth and there's the Williams booth with 6 Attack from Marses, and they're giving away all sorts of free stuff. I mean, it was, amazing. And I think it's changed over the years the same way sort of the hobby has changed. I think it's really mirrored what the hobby represents. So, a beefed up tournament now that the tournament used to just be on one machine, and now the tournament's on a bunch of machines because tournament pinball has gotten crazy. And you have people with their LED booths because modding is crazy, and you have everyone, the people who chrome plate and the boutique guys. I mean, it represents the current state of pinball every single year, and that included the really crappy years back in 2000 and 2001 where you'd show up to the expo hall and it was like, is it Sunday? Everyone tearing down? It's Friday evening. What's going on? So it really, you're going to have a great show when the hobby is healthy and the manufacturing is healthy. And I think everyone would agree it's a pretty good time for pinball as a hobby and as a business for those that are trying to make a go at it. So I expect really to have a really fun show.
Have you won this tournament before?
I have not. I think Zach and I battled in an all-sharp final that he beat me on. I think second's my best.
Gotcha. All right, well.
Quit opening up these wounds.
I know, I'm sorry.
Nuts.
You have some catching up to do still on the head-to-head with Zach. You got one back, though, Papa, though. That was a win.
Yeah. I remember when I used to be better than that kid.
Well, he's pretty good.
He is pretty good.
Are you still interested in the new games, in the boutique games, in that side of it? I know, obviously you work for Raw Thrills, which is in the coin-op entertainment business. You're the CFO of Raw Thrills.
I am.
So you also write for Playmeter Magazine, which
I do.
I assume, I'm just guessing this, you do some of the pinball writing for that.
We do coin-operated game reviews.
Okay.
And it used to be, it was a column in the 70s that my dad did, and this was right when he was getting into the industry, and it was called Critics Corner. And he would review, and believe this, he would review, I think, 3 new pinball machines every month.
Isn't that amazing?
It's unbelievable. So he did that forever, and it was the 25th anniversary. This was back in 1999. And they approached my dad to, hey, do write a Critics Corner for us for the 25th anniversary because, you used to do this and it was such a great part of the, the magazine every month. And he had brought up to them letting his sons, give it a go and try it. And he would write, an intro to the column, sort of, where his life's gone and blah, blah, blah. So he does that, and Zach and I, we wrote a review. I can still remember what the games were. It was Star Wars Episode 1 and Sega's Harley-Davidson. And we laid out the column the exact same way my dad did. He would give like a brief overview and talk about the game rules and talk about the pros and the cons as he saw, the game.
So what you're saying is you reviewed those games, you killed Williams, and had Sega sold.
Actually, what's amazing is that, and I think the day that Williams shut down, it's the same day as my anniversary with my wife. And it's also the reason why I have the job I have, because that it was sort of the domino effect of Williams Bally Midway getting out of coin op led to a bunch of ex-Midway people starting Raw Thrills and ... Thank God Williams shut down pinball, so I have the job I have.
Wow.
It's amazing that experience can be, so terrible and so amazing to me personally at the same time, but I digress.
Well, I was flipping through the latest Playmeter because they do post it in PDF online, and there was
I didn't know they did that.
And there was a brief little one-pager on The Walking Dead, just kind of announcing what we all know. I'm assuming at some point down the road there will be an in-depth review of The Walking Dead. Is that exciting for you to do that still with the new games that come out?
It is. I know that, the column back in 99, it was pretty clear that there wasn't going to be a 3 pinball games a month kind of column. No. And so we shifted into doing all sorts of coin-op games. But I know that Zach and I, whenever it's time to do a pinball, we get way more excited about doing that. And I know we just did, I think Mustang is going to be the October issue, which actually should be out this week. So the Mustang review will be out. And we just did Wizard of Oz a couple of months ago. The difference now, and it sort of mirrors the way the hobby is we have to wait until the code is good enough to review the game, based on and this is sort of where we get caught in the middle of, the magazine wants a review, the manufacturer wants a review, but the design team doesn't want a review because the game isn't their vision yet. And our relationships with, the various designers, we want to make sure we're not reviewing, hey, The Walking Dead's coming out. Our review's going to be out for the October issue. The lights all flash and there's no code in it yet. I mean,
it wouldn't do anybody any good at that point.
Exactly. Yeah. So, it's definitely weird to be, having a Wizard of Oz review that was just published 2 months ago, or even having a Mustang review that's not published yet. And, that game is sort of no longer the newest game now that The Walking Dead's shipping. But we get it done, and it allows us to have more to write about and to really give our honest feedback on what we like and what we don't like, and we enjoy that.
Have you found, I know we were joking about at the Papa tournament, your Wizard of Oz review had come out, and you have people all around you at times who've worked on the game, who've done code on the game, and that probably happens especially with the Stern guys too. Do they ever pull you aside and go, really that's what you said? Oh yeah,
I know that it's like if I hear somebody's really pissed at Zach and myself, I'll walk down to my boss's desk and be like, oh good, the copy of Playmeter's on his desk, that means that hit today, god damn it. But a lot of those guys, they take pride in what they do, and there is no game that is perfect, and we have a cons section for a reason. So there's going to be some cons and some things that we, disagree with or whatever. And, when Zach and I write something that, we don't like about a game, we do it with the caveat of we always provide something that we think would have been a better decision for that. So it doesn't come off as complaining. And I've sat with enough designers, with the article in front of my face and say, I can't believe you wrote that about this game. And it's like, well, that's I'll tell them to their face, it's exactly how I feel about the game, still. Why don't you change that? And I think, and I'm sure a lot of the gravitas comes from our dad, but, they certainly take it easy on us and appreciate the feedback. And for us, there's a lot of feedback we're able to provide, before we put pen to paper that can maybe, remove some of the cons from ever happening because, they appreciate the feedback ahead of time.
Sure. Now, with stuff like Medieval Madness coming out now, and we saw the excellent video that your dad was a part of. I mean, that was very, very cool. Now, that comes out, and all these boutique games coming out, which I've been trying to not use that word because something rubs me a little bit wrong on that. But it is, I guess it's the appropriate term.
I like your independent label idea.
They're independent builders, so to speak. Does that have a place in your writing? What are your current thoughts on those games as part of the world?
I've actually thought about that. I don't know. I think certainly if any of them advertise in Playmeter, we'll probably get an email from the Playmeter boss saying, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Let's get a review going for them and make sure it's a good one because we want to get some ad revenue. But I don't know. I know that, we only get to review 2 or 3 pinball machines a year, but our intro section of our column is nearly 100% pinball. I'm sure it bores the readers to death, but that's the kind of stuff that worst case we're talking about in our intro, even if we're not reviewing the game for the company.
Excellent. So we kind of chatted via email a little bit about sort of a separate thing, and this has to do with some work you've done with some television production companies and trying to further the idea of possibly bringing pinball or pinball as a thing, as a reality-driven show to television at some point. Where are you at with that? What can you let us know? What are your thoughts on it? I'd love to hear about that.
Well, it's been an interesting ride. I know that, part of, and you can read the mission statement of the IFPA, but besides, running the Whopper system, our goal is really to focus on what my dad and Steve Epstein focused on when they ran Papa for so many years, which was the sport needs to be more than just our group of players, playing for the whatever prize money we're willing to put into the pot. And, when they convinced me to sort of get the IFPA stuff going, they were pounding the payment on it's all about media impressions. And the more media impressions you get, the more likely you are to get this snowball rolling in a positive direction. And we had two really big pieces hit in the last, 8 months, 9 months. And one of them was in Wired magazine, and more recently, one of them was in the cover of the Wall Street Journal. And, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I hadn't talked to 15 production companies. It's easily more than that right now, that they see something in pinball and they see the uniqueness. And I think they see something that is drawing all of these walks of life to this game. And I think it's a really big reason why we all like this game, is that it is something that, I work for an arcade company, doctor, lawyer, all walks of life can sort of find pinball. And I think that allows for interesting characters to develop because it's not all cut from the same cloth. So we've been going down the road with, further along down the road with a couple of them, and I know that there'll actually be two of them at Pinball Expo. One of them is for the HBO show Vice. I don't know if you watched that.
I know of it. Have not seen it, but I do know of it.
So they're doing a piece on pinball and actually flew out to Oakland to cover the Iron Man tournament that we helped run with Radio Shack and Stern. And then actually I heard that they sat down with the city council members that overturned the ban. And I told them, I'm like, I wonder if those people are like, this rule's stupid, let's overturn it. Or if they actually, listened to and tried to reason why or why not pinball should be legal. And I'm like, I would love to hear, what the person making the decision had to say. And they wrote me back and said they actually got footage on that. So, I think theirs is going to be a one-time thing, but I think it's going to be a really great sort of mini doc when they're done with it. And we're also working with the production company that actually brought the World Series of Poker to television. And they see a lot of similarities. Obviously, that's the most popular comparison online is, pinball's the next poker, pinball's the next poker. And we have the World Series of Poker people saying, we think pinball might be the next poker. So trying to figure out an angle that will make things entertaining is, it's what I tell the production companies, that's their job. And, we'll get them the players and we'll help them run the events. And if there's an angle that they can find and characters that they think are entertaining, we're willing to sort of go down the rabbit hole with them. And, I told you over email, I'm a little concerned about how genuine the player base is in seeing that executed, because nothing comes for free.
Sure.
We all want to be playing for millions of dollars. I would love to go to Papa and instead of winning 10 grand, I win 10 million. But that's going to come at a price, and it's going to come at a price of some sort of personal exploitation. And the player base as a whole needs to decide, and we haven't been pitched anything serious enough yet. I know that one of the production companies is we're hosting a little private side tournament at Expo. And the production company threw in $1,000, which is, as I told them, that's a hell of a purse for no entry fee to give away $1,000.
Yeah.
So we have anyone that's ranked in the top 250 is eligible to compete, and it's just a way for this production company to interact with the best players in the world that'll happen to be at Expo. And as I told them, I'm really curious afterwards to get their feedback over, what were the players like? Are they interested in, sort of going down the rabbit hole with us? Or do they like having their 9-to-5 job and they do pinball, 1 weekend a month and it's cool the way it is? Well, I'm really fascinated to know what direction it goes, and I know
that's interesting.
I'm in for the ride.
I totally get what you're saying. It's funny because pinball as a hobby is this kind of, I wouldn't say tight-knit isn't exactly that, but it's a very welcoming community in general. But I have asked many, and I say many, 5 to 10 people who I think our hobby would love to hear an interview with, or just to hear thoughts from players' names that we all know that are on the top of all these lists.
Oh, yeah.
There's some trepidation from some of these guys.
There is.
They're like, I don't know what I would talk about. Or I've had guys say, yeah, let's do that. That would be fun. And then they back out.
Yeah, I know that for this production company that we're working with at Expo with the side tournament, I was able to... the way the format works, it's sort of like a launch party. Everyone's going to get to play a game and sort of interact with the team. And if they submit a 1-minute video to this production company, they would get 2 attempts. So for most pinball players, it's like, would you like to play the game once or like to play the game twice and take your better score? And it's like, hey, sign me up to play the game twice. Like, that's double the chances. And it's amazing how many people were just like, a video? I don't even know what and it's like, dude, if you can't submit a 1-minute video on your iPhone, we're a long way from cameras in your face while you're playing for $1 million. It's just, the level of exploitation of filming yourself for a minute is nothing compared to what these production companies would expect out of the player base in order to make something entertaining to be able to sell ads for their show. And I think, all the comparisons from pinball to poker, you can look at the sort of poker elite cast of characters, and they are into it, man. You can see I watched the World Series of Poker, and I watched World Poker Tour back when it was, hotter.
Yep.
And these guys, they love the camera. They love talking about anything. It's like you got to shut the camera off to shut them up. And I think that's the one thing that people don't realize in terms of pushing poker forward. It's not just about the game and the fact that it's chip in a chair and anyone can do it. It was about the characters that were willing to, I'd hate to say sell out, but, in a way they sold out to further their sport. And I don't know if the pinball player base is willing to sell out that way.
I agree. I don't know if they are either, but I can't help but think we have some great personalities within that upper echelon. Because I think you need the best players. I think to be really interesting as far as if the angle is going to be on TV, top level tournament style playing, then you need the best players. And I think that there's a group of people there that would be very interesting to someone sitting on their couch in Middle America who hasn't really watched pinball before.
I agree, and I think everyone's background, and I know their stories because I'm friends with them, and it's like your story is really interesting, and it's like no other story from anyone ranked in the top 100, and it's like you can go to those 100 guys, and each of them have, how'd you find pinball? What do you do for a living? And you're going to hear 100 completely different stories besides Zach and my story being the same, but I think people are easy to have some sort of self-doubt that they don't have anything interesting about themselves to share. And I think if they're willing to jump out and share themselves and realize, give it a chance, see if they find something interesting in you, because ultimately all of the players will end up benefiting if we're willing to give it a shot.
Do you think that we need to, as a hobby, and I say we, I don't mean you and I tonight.
We can make it happen, Nate.
We can make, the phones are still working. Do we need to find sponsorship for tournaments? Do we need to find some, start out with the lower tier? I think back to, how companies like Red Bull and Monster and Rockstar sponsored anything they could get their name on as they were building their brand. Does pinball need to go out and find those brands to sort of grow up with and get some money put into this, even if it's just a little extra prize money and some cool giveaways and banners at the events? Do we need to start doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and we've done a lot of work with sponsors, and I think if you look at the back of the IFPA World Championship T-shirt since between 2008 and now, you'll see the number of logos that we have on the back of the shirt has grown, 5 or 6 times. And, the relationship with a potential sponsor, it's a two-way street. And that even goes with the relationship that we have with Stern, who's our biggest sponsor. There's a difference between a sponsorship and a donation. And I think that being able to show the sponsor value is challenging from the pinball side. Whether it's, if it's Red Bull, can we get these players to, step up and support, or even, fake support Red Bull? And it's like, nah, I just want to just go away. I just want to play my game. I'm here for the weekend. It's a lot of, I know Zach was sponsored by Prilosec OTC a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And he was sponsored by Mike's Hard Lemonade, either last year or the year before that. And, that's us pounding the pavement trying to do anything. And, if Zach's able to get, Mike's Hard Lemonade to sponsor, him or one of our events for $500 or $1,000, it's like, all right, we'll take it. But really, I don't know if we have enough to provide outside of, pinball distributors, manufacturers. I know for Stern, the Walking Dead launch party that's coming up is the 14th launch party that we've done together with them. And we have the Stern Rewards program that was recently expanded, and we do a lot of work with them in return for what they give us through sponsorship. And it just comes down to forming those relationships, and that's really hard to call even a Red Bull or insert, much smaller company like Red Bull.
Sure.
to get those relationships formed. And Zach, that falls on it's Zach's job, and he's always doing it, and he's been able to land a couple of really small things. But man, we're a really obscure industry still, and a really obscure game that people aren't aware exists.
So when The Walking Dead was announced, I think a lot of us knew that was coming for months and months and months.
No comment.
Yeah, I know. So no huge surprise, and I knew, and I can tell everyone it was not Josh that told me first, but I'm kidding.
Welcome to the club where you have to deal with people asking you to share what you know, and they won't tell anyone. Trust me.
Oh yeah, right. So one of my big things when you saw The Walking Dead, I thought The Walking Dead was a good move because it is so culturally relevant. And you could say, well, Star Trek's more so, but Star Trek's a big movie, and I think there's a little, it's so already merchandised to death. I thought The Walking Dead was nice because it's really, really current. Might be one of the most current, I put current in quotes, air quotes that you can't see in a podcast, themes that Stern has done in a long time. I think that that's a good thing, because if you can get these games on location, you are going to get the eyeballs on the game. What are your thoughts on The Walking Dead, just sort of from that angle, and then from what have you played The Walking Dead by chance? No comment.
I think I've put about 8 minutes on it. I think when I was over there for lunch, and
what are your thoughts on it as a game, as far as integrating this sort of dark, mean, grisly theme into a pinball machine? What are your thoughts there?
I'm still gonna too early to tell. How it's all gonna shake out. I think that it's definitely a bold theme choice, and I think you look at a lot of, I guess it's not true. If you look at, the Pinside Top 10 or whatever, there used to be sort of this, a game has to have humor to work. And it's like, yeah, it does if you look at the games that have humor that are successful. But I think a good game is a good game. I know that, whether it was CSI, which had 30 million viewers a week, but bombed as a game, I don't know how big the audience is that actually watches the show, that would be like, oh my God, it's a Walking Dead pinball machine, versus, out of 10 people, how many out of 10, are huge Walking Dead fans? And I am, and that's great. But I think, the way the game is sort of presenting itself, at least right now, as a generic zombie-ish theme with sort of Walking Dead on it,
wrapped around it.
I think leaves it, I don't watch The Walking Dead, but I love zombie. They're awesome, blah, blah, blah. I think it gives them a chance to maybe get both camps where, if I walk up and it's like you're shooting a shot and it's all about Rick Grimes and this and this, and it's just like, I don't know who that dude is. I don't know what he's doing. Who this governor dude is really weird. Maybe I got to watch the show. Like, it allows you to sort of get lost in the pinball world that pinball game is going to present. So I think they're giving themselves the best crack at it. So I'm curious to see how it works out.
What was your take? Because we haven't really talked since Mustang came out and was released. I know you've written a review that I haven't read as it was more trade-oriented. But what was your take on Mustang as a game and a theme?
What... I should pull up our review and look. But, we liked some things about it. One thing that I liked about it was, and it's typical for John Trudeau machines, and it's really has very little to do with the game in general, but his flipper gap at the bottom is a standard flipper gap, and I'm going to geek out. You can edit this out if you want, Nate.
No, I love it. I love it. This is good stuff.
So the standard flipper gap is 1 7/8 inches. And I find modern pinball to be too controllable. And by that, I mean, I'm going to play a game for an hour, and a casual player is going to play a game for a minute. And I like games where, and I think there's room for designers to have the ball be less controllable, where maybe I'm only going to play for 15 minutes, and the casual player is still going to play for a minute because he sucks just the same. It doesn't even matter.
Yep.
And Mustang has the John Trudeau flipper gap, which for anybody that owns a creature, you'll notice, my ball seems to go down the middle a lot. Like, I swear to God, these flippers are further apart from each other than all of my other Williams Valley games that are sitting here. And that's because they are.
They are.
And I really like that gap. I know every time I go over there, I'm always yelling at the stern guys, 2-inch flipper gap, guys, 2 inches, 2 1/8. Come on, let's go. And I think it provided, at least for me, pinball for me, and people can disagree all they want. I'm on the Gary Stern camp that pinball needs to be a viable location. I think I got into it the last time we talked. It needs to be a viable location money-making device for it to have any sort of longevity in the world, just even thinking about it, or else it really dies with us, the current group of hobbyists, and whoever happens to be our friends or our children are the only people that are going to move it on. And I think, the Mustang audits that we've looked at, and part of our write-up is about the audits of, how quickly are the ball times, where are people reaching in the game. And the Mustang audits were fantastic for location play.
Interesting. So
as far as the other stuff in the game, it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah,
it's okay. It scratches the itch. I'm in my basement right now. I have a Metallica. I have an AC/DC. I have a Tron. I have a Big Buck Hunter because I work at Raw Thrills. I don't plan on getting a Mustang.
Gotcha. Speaking of Raw Thrills, you are probably more in the know as far as, I guess, the business side of coin-op than maybe just about anybody. What are you seeing from the coin-op and the more video game side as far as the business of that? Are we seeing anything mirroring what pinball tends to be doing right now? Or what's your take as far as the coin-op business, the arcade business in general, not just pinball?
That's a good question. I know, a quick side note for those that may not know, but we don't build our own games. We have a contract manufacturer that we work with, but back when, this was before I was at the company, Stern Pinball actually bid on being our contract manufacturer for, as Gary Stern says, he's a manufacturing company, and he was almost Raw Thrills' manufacturing company.
Wow.
How about that? We see it's our market. It's weird. Our market's easier than pinball in some ways, and it's harder than pinball. I know that Eugene and Gary are great friends, and at Raw Thrills we wish we had the ability to slap gold side rails on a game and say we're only going to sell 300 and make an extra couple grand for each game. I know Eugene has come in and asked me my thoughts on, if we take our driving game and we do gold plastics, do you think we could sell 50 into the home? And it's like, no way, man, nobody cares. I think for the actual, coin op location business, we have a formula that just seems to work. And I think, luckily, there's no pin side of, arcade games, but if you search Raw Thrills arcade games, a lot of the reviews of our games are terrible. And the reason why is that we're kind of making, for our driving games at least, we're making Cruisin' from the 90s. And we're doing it over and over and over again. We create new and sort of little twists on the theme. But I think it's, the same people that complain in pinball that, John Borg is doing his same layout. And here, let me show you this flipped Walking Dead that looks like a Tron, except Walking Dead only has 2 flippers and Tron has 3. Like, there's a lot of that for us as well. We have the same designers that have been working on games for years, and finding new ways to get people to replace their old equipment with our new equipment is a challenge. And we have a formula that seems to work.
So are you saying that the cool Batman game I saw in a Walmart in the middle of Connecticut the other day was just Cruisin'? That's all that was?
That's one of our outside developer studios in California. That's actually a really awesome game that is in no way Cruisin'-like at all.
That's what I thought. I looked at it for a second. There was a kid playing it, and I had no time, but it looked awesome.
I think, the bigger thing, and we can get sort of into the business side a little bit, and you can stop me if it's too boring, but, Betson is our exclusive distributor at Raw Thrills, and I know that they're also a distributor for Stern. But, our customers these days, whether they be family entertainment centers, bars, random street operators, bowling alleys, wherever it is, the ability for someone to buy their own games and plunk down $7,000-8,000, it just doesn't happen anymore like it used to. And it's really where the distributor's role has taken on a new meaning. I mean, back in the day, distributors used to take stock of games, and then they stopped doing that, and they just drop ship everything. And Betson, for us, not only are they, stocking equipment, but they are doing a lot of financing to help get games into the hands of our customers. And we do a lot of rev sharing. So we find a way to get the equipment out there, and, we do rev sharing because we believe in our games and that they're a good investment for our customers. Or else, we have canceled projects that have been, over $1 million into development because Eugene didn't want to push that onto our customer as something that they can make money on. So, we really do put our money where our mouth is, and with Betson's ability to finance, and the big thing that they have is a stop-and-go lease. And, something I think that would work really well in the pinball world to try to get people to just taste putting pinball on location again and giving it a chance is the monthly rates turn out to be about a week's worth of earnings. So,
one
for
week
someone
pays for the whole month.
Yeah, and you have no money down, and at the end of either 9 months or 18 or 27, you give the game back, and you get the new one, and you keep going. And, the operator makes money without a huge investment. The distributor makes money. We make money because we sell the game to the distributor. And then the distributor takes the game back, and the resale value is pretty good because we sell that. We make sure that our game is good enough for that secondary market to still be, a worthwhile product. And I think pinball, if distributors do it right, and there was really this stream of, street-operated Stern games after a year or 2 years that come off route, I think, and seeing what retail or resale prices are now for some Sterns, if you have an AC/DC that's been out for 2 years, and they're making whatever $99 a month, and after 2 years they've made whatever they're $3,000, and they're willing to sell that used AC/DC premium for $4,000, you're going to have people that are jumping all over that.
Absolutely. Do you think that the maintenance aspect of pinball is one of the factors that holds that kind of model back?
It absolutely does, but I think what's worse than that is the sort of legacy of how bad it actually is to operate a pinball. I think that at least, the most interaction we have is obviously with Stern games, and their switch to all LEDs on the Pro and the way that they've made their mechanical devices, their games are about as street friendly as a pinball has been in a really long time.
I agree, and I think people are missing that a little bit. Boy, when I started really covering this and getting into it, you still had all these threads popping up of people bashing the build quality of Stern games. That's kind of gone. I'm not seeing that at all. I think it'd be hard for anybody to walk up to an AC/DC or Metallica and say those games aren't built very well.
Yeah, and I think, especially the Pro models that they really focus on that maybe have, obviously, the Pinside crowd will look at features removed because, they're just trying to make people buy the premium. But really, it's about putting Stern in the best position to have a game that isn't going to break down for their, operator customer. And I think, with Metallica, if that's, they did a fantastic job deciding to not go with the hammer for the Pro because, the hammer is probably the biggest problem piece on that game. And anyone that has a Pro on location doesn't have to worry about it. And it's a great Pro game for operators to make money with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's good. That's great insight there. I love it. We got to wrap this thing up, Josh.
Yeah, man, you're way over an hour.
Well, it is what
and
it
I even
is.
had my wife. My wife came down and was like, "What's going on?" I thought it's usually an hour max.
Yeah, well, we had a lot to talk about.
I have to go get in bed with Amanda.
Yeah, go get in bed with Amanda. Teresa is probably wanting to kill me right now through the closed door here. So, but that's okay. Well, excellent, man. We're going to see each other in a couple weeks in your hometown in Chicago, and I'm going to be doing a lot of show-type stuff, recording from the floor, and I hope to have you in at least once and talk about what we're seeing. Maybe we can check out one of the new games together and talk about it afterwards and root you on your way to your first victory at the Expo tournament.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for coming, man. I really appreciate it all the time, and I hope to do it again.
Always.
What a good dude. I mean, this is like one of the longest episodes of the show ever. Josh hung, talked about all sorts of stuff. If you guys could only hear what we talked about when we stopped recording. But that's for another day. Thank you for joining us on episode 109 of Coast to Coast Pinball. We will have episode 110 as soon as possible. Appreciate you listening. Take care.